Da. All right, welcome to another Skull Sessions podcast. And today my guest is Garrett Cook. Is that how it's hit?
Yes.
Okay. So what have you been up to, Garrett? You're on the East Coast, or you're on the Pacific Coast. I'm on the East Coast, so we had a little time variation problem there.
Yeah, I've been living here for 8 years and I still forget to tell people I'm on Pacific time. I don't know what it is. I guess it's because I spent so much of my life on the East Coast.
Right. Yeah, people just forget about time zones. But what do you have out right now, and what are you doing right now?
The most recent book was 4 years in the making. It's called Charcoal from Clash Books. It's sort of the elevator pitch they give for it is like a combination of the picture of Dorian Gray and Hellraiser. Uh but basically it takes that and it adds like a lot of the questions of social justice that were happening as I was writing it and watching like protests and the height of the Black Lives Matter movement and watching like just wondering about power and ethics and just whiteness and the arts and just like thinking about the legacy that I'm part of and what parts to own and what parts not to own and like what people do with influence and power when they get it. And this is a book about like the choice to use power judiciously or the choice to use it cruelly.
Okay. Do you try and go a bit into like the socioeconomic sphere when you write? Is that like a major component?
I think like I don't usually write things that are as centered in the real world as charcoal. I like to create just very hermetically sealed places, but at the same time I'm always thinking about politics. I'm always thinking about politics via how we treat each other, not necessarily about the economics of it, but about the personhood aspects of it, about the justice aspects of it, because that to me is like why we need leadership, why we need laws. We need these things to establish how we create contracts betwixt ourselves and how we establish like the standards by which we treat each other. And in this way, like horror is always political in a way because it's always about how we treat each other. And it's always about like cruelty and suffering and how a person goes through that one way or the other.
But I don't think there's a disagreement over us needing laws, a disagreement over what laws we should have.
Oh, certainly.
You know, people have not only do people have different opinions, but they get very subjective, and then maybe they get their religion or the culture intermixed with it. So it can be a very complex issue.
Yeah, I like to try and strip that away in my head when I can and try to go straight to the morality and the treatment of people aspect of it because that's always what's most important to me above anything politically. Just seeing people have personhood. That's what matters to me more
Well,
than anything.
what I really like is when people do stuff like have you read Old Man's War or the Forever War, where like it kind of delves into like how it affects people socially and how it affects even like different creatures. They're still sentient creatures.
Yeah, I really enjoy when you have military sci-fi and it deals with the personhood of alien creatures and it's not just, you know,
Some
and it's
horrible
not just a
monster
big
comes to kill
genocidal
you. Yeah,
fantasy.
yeah.
I think I, I like I think that's one of the best uses for that particular subgenre. I ghost wrote a bit of that and that's where my interests were when I was working in that genre for people.
What is sci-fi? You're saying you were a ghostwriter in sci-fi for a while?
I've ghost written a bit of military sci-fi, yeah. It was not my wheelhouse remotely, but what I found was that you need to focus on the characters, you need to focus on what they're going through, and you need to focus on like I focus on the weight of things, on the heft of killing another being
More the humanity of individual
and the
creatures.
humanity
What?
of yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Whether they're human or whether they're different different colors, different cultures, different whatever. It's like there's still a sentient being.
Yeah, I felt that that was really that was really important to just to make sure that the price of war was front and center, that the personhood of both the character and the enemy were front and center, and also just generally that it still remained fun and dynamic and slick, because that's what you've got to do if you're writing if you're writing military anything, you need to make sure that you need to make sure your fight scenes pop. And that's actually like that's one of the hardest aspects of it when you're writing more commercial stuff and it comes in like more fight scenes. Because if you're doing something that's more splatterpunk and more artsy splatterpunk and bizarro like I usually do, like you can take time and you can use the poetics and you can use the walls of the thing to fuck with people, and you can just like establish intimacy and drill your way in. But when it comes to more commercial fiction, the action needs to be external, and it needs to be like it needs to be front and center, and it needs to be propulsive. It needs to be moving everything forward every time something exciting happens. It needs to actually be exciting on the page. And that's very, very hard because you have people often when writing fight scenes, they think about it almost in terms of video game or board gaming or like a D&D game.
Right, right,
It's like there are no turns in a fucking fight.
right, right.
That's not fighting. It's not like I punch you and then you punch me. That's no.
I think people really need to do their research before they like figure they know a character. Like I'm a tattoo artist, and I've had people that will write like a character. It's a tattoo artist that completely does not act like a tattoo artist. So anybody who knows anything about tattoo artists is like that. That is totally fake. That you just ruined the entire story for me. But
No, that makes sense. Like it's also like it's such a particular thing and such a particular vibe. And it's also just like it's really weird seeing so many people think of tattoo artists as kind of like as hacky. It's so weird because that is not how tattooing goes. Like it is so much like there's so much ethics to it. There's so much like training, there's so much apprenticeship, and there's so much artistry. Like it's an artisanal like it's an artisanal thing. It's not like somebody's tattoo artist is going to be just like some fucking creep. That's not like
well, it's changed a lot over time.
it
And
that's
like the
true, yeah.
perception has changed a lot. And they say something like, I think 80% of the population under the age of 36 is tattooed now.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
my partner just got her first one last year.
yeah, I remember when I first got into it back in like the late 90s, it was like, why would you do that? That's like a biker and gang leader thing and drug dealer thing. And now they make a joke. Like they have a meme where it says a neck tattoo used to say, I'm badass, stay away from a motherfucker, and now it says, let me read you my vegan poetry.
Yeah, no, that's actually true. It's like it's so many things. Like this is just I mean, yeah, and you see that living in and I see that living in Portland. Like everyone's tattooed here pretty much. And there's
Yeah.
tattoo parlors all over the damn place. There's strip
I
clubs
did a
all
guest
over the
spot
damn
there.
place.
I did do a guest spot at the strip club. I did a guest spot at the tattoo wall in there.
Yeah. No, exactly. You could totally like walk into the strip club, have a PBR in the middle of the afternoon while you check your email, and then maybe walk out and get a tattoo.
Oh yeah,
And this is like a day.
yeah.
Except of course the tattoo artists like are booked solid for quite a while because some of them got serious names around here.
Well, yeah. That's any good tattoo artist can't do it right on the spot. That's one thing I
Oh yeah.
really don't like about Ink Master. Ink Master kind of ruined the way that people perceive
Oh,
tattoo
for
parlors.
sure.
They'll walk in, and they go, "Yeah, I want a back piece." You're like, "Okay, you want to plan it?" They're like, "Yeah, let's start right now." And no.
Off the street.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Yeah, please put needles near my spine with no preparation whatsoever. Please do that. That's great. Yeah. Like, can you do that in like 3 minutes?
Well,
No,
I
God.
remember when I started, like people would bring the needles to me to make sure I use clean needles. Like, of course I use clean needles. Like I have
Wow.
a bloodborne pathogen license. I get licensed by the health department every couple of years. But anyways, so
Yeah,
like
you can't walk
it's
into the kitchen of a restaurant with a fucking salt shaker, you know?
well, maybe back in the day, like the 1940s or 50s. But all right, so
Yeah.
let's get back to your running career. So what do you focus on? Is there like one genre that you specifically like to work with?
Well, I'm a bizarro and horror person. I haven't been feeling the bizarro for a bit because it's a little chill and it's a little more chill than I have really, and it's often more humorous. And I'm just like when I sit down to write, I'm not really feeling comedy lately, and I haven't been feeling that for a while. And it's like and it's something that I was somewhat not as comfortable with as I could have been. Because like it's a genre that pushes toward humor, but I focus more on the weirdness and the terror and the grotesquerie. Uh like if I go back to it, it's going to be something uh that's as not fun as the other stuff I'm creating. I just realized like I came to terms with like maybe I'm not fun. Maybe this shit's not fun, and that's okay. Maybe it's okay to not be fun because this is fucking horror, you know.
You can be serious. You can have all sorts of different triggers or whatever. As long as you do good work, all that really
Yeah.
matters is the quality of the work.
No, exactly. And that's yeah, I think it's the quality of the work and it's just like putting your heart into it and not like and also just like not writing extreme horror with your dick out.
We should. That's part of why I'm not a fan of like the gross out contests that they have at conventions. Like you, that's not putting anything clever together. You're just trying to disgust me. So I did
Oh
like
yeah, no, exactly.
so I didn't like movies like a Serbian film. I was like, it's not a good movie. I'm not shocked that he has sex with a child at the end. I didn't think that was a good ending. A spoiler alert, but I didn't think that was a good ending. But I was like, but it's not a great movie.
Yeah, I liked that one, but only because I've known a bunch of people in a bunch of Serbian people, and because I've watched a lot of earlier Serbian cinema. The thing is, like it as a shock piece by itself, it absolutely, I agree, it does not work. It requires a lot of context on what meant to Europe. The fact that for a while this country was just treated as like a guy outside of the 7-Eleven with an open trench coat full of fireworks and needles was basically what the rest of Europe thought of Serbia as. Like Serbia
Well,
was thought of as
I
like
didn't see
a
that angle.
trashy and exploitable country.
Yeah, I didn't see that angle, and you're actually making me rethink my opinion of the movie a little bit because I didn't realize that that goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like and that's a weird thing too because like when we have a hardcore gross out thing in America, it's frequently just like it's just a hardcore gross out thing. But a lot of other countries have very different sensibilities regarding extreme horror and splatter, and I think they're actually a bit better. It's just like we shouldn't have limits when describing the pain we're in
Right.
is essentially like where that's at. And I felt like a Serbian film just like showed the sheer degradation and the sheer pain and national consciousness that got compromised for wars that they didn't want to be part of and crimes that they didn't want to be part of, like experienced down to this person who just constantly has to sell his soul worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until What does he have to do? He has to fuck the next generation.
Right. Well, I think that like there's a much deeper dive into it, and I wish I'd known all those cultural aspects that fed into the storyline.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
if you don't see that, you're just like, what is this movie about a guy that fucks a child?
And that's one of the difficult things about extreme horror culture is we don't is it's hard to curate, it's hard to contextualize, and it's hard to engage it not as the gross out piece if you don't understand or haven't seen that it didn't come from the context of a gross out piece. When people like it is a thing that's used to gross out because yeah, it's fucking grotesque. But it's fucking grotesque because the person creating it wanted to show just how bad it was. And that's the kind of grotesquerie I can always get behind. Is just like the place where showing something literally doesn't do it because all the you see all these like you see all these movies about the Holocaust, about all these great national tragedies, and yes, you're feeling for them as it happens, but you're not feeling the Holocaust when you're watching it because it's literally just a depiction of the Holocaust. It's a picture of
Right.
the Holocaust. So you need some poetics there to really establish the kind of pain that someone's been in a lot of the time. When you show just like a tragedy as it is, it's a picture of a tragedy. So you need to work it to show like it might as well be this. It might as well be this bad. This neighborhood, this experience, this life might as well be this bad. That's the kind of grotesquerie. That's the kind of grotesquerie I get behind. Is like when it's true, when it's the heart of something, when it's revelatory. I think it's so much better that way. And I
But
think that
I remember
gross
one
out
thing that
culture
really
can.
impacted me was I saw a war movie, and you see plenty of war movies where like people get shot or they get stabbed or whatever. But this one, he slowly got bayoneted by German soldiers, like World War II, and
Yeah,
and he's talking about like, oh my God, it's going to like, and you feel the emotion and the sensation moment by moment, and like he can't believe this person is killing him, and the person does.
it's really bold when somebody makes a war movie of to show the impact of war because so often it was used like to
John
show that
Wayne,
war is
yeah,
exciting or that the
yeah.
people in war are brave, and the people in war are certainly fucking brave. I mean, yeah, but that's not the whole of it. That doesn't that provokes respect, but it doesn't provoke empathy.
But that's an aspect. That's not a summation.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah,
Okay,
I
so
think the price is important. It's always important.
yeah, well, there's a heavy price to everything, and people often don't realize what goes into it. But let's go back to your books for a minute here. So you're saying that like the kind of like you're really enjoying the like splatter, bizarro fiction right now. What were you doing prior to that?
Prior to that, I wasn't really writing much of anything. I mean, I spent from 16 to 22 I wrote one book. I spent 7 years on trying to do a very literary but weirdly splat punky but kind of in denial like modernization of Dante's Divine Comedy about like a person's experience in hell. So I was dealing with hell directly for 7 years and just hammering this into what I wanted it to be and being like a consummate artiste. But fortunately, the little floppy that was on, it broke, and so I lost that, and that was a blessing. I had to move on. Like I lost when you're 15, you're not doing your magnum opus. You're just like you're learning to do the thing, and your nose is against the grindstone, and you're figuring out what you want the adult world to look like for you.
Right. No,
Uh
I wrote my first book in fifth grade about giant robots in space, and I hope nobody reads that.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly it. I thought like I want to get right there and I was just champing at the bit like I wanted to get to the show, like I wanted to start doing this. And I wrote a book that I thought would help me start doing this. And I got like I got a decent reaction from one agent, but who was like, "Nah, like we don't want to touch this though. Like this is good writing, but God, this is fucked up." It was like, "Huh, that's odd. I didn't know this was fucked up." Then I decided to do something fucked up. And that worked out much better for me because turns out that's what I can do,
Right.
and that's what I'm like. So yeah, you got to figure that out, you know.
Would you say that like how many books do you have out right now?
Christ, I think it's eight.
Okay. And would you say that they all kind of like stick with the same genre? Do you think you've transitioned from one to another?
I think like I took a lot of inspiration from Joe Lansdale. Uh Joe Lansdale like has said like I am the Joe Lansdale genre. That's why I write. Don't call me splatterpunk, don't call me bizarro, don't call me a crime guy, don't even call me a horror guy. Even if my wife helped create the HWA, don't call me that. It's Joe Lansdale. And that like that doing whatever the fuck he pleased aspect like really just really got to me and just was something I related to heavily because I bore easily. Just generally, like I'm a very curious person who gets bored of shit. So like each of my books is something different stylistically. Each of my books is something different genre wise. Like my Bizarro stuff, basically like I took a book that's supposedly about a teddy bear detective and it's like it's a suicide note. It's like it is dark as fuck. And by the way, this was 2 years before fucking Seth MacFarlane put out Ted, and people are just constantly every once in a while find on Tumblr like, oh, this is just a Ted ripoff. And you can't say like fuck you, here's an issue of magazine of bizarro fiction where I had a story published 3 years before Seth MacFarlane did that, because that's petty as fuck. That's nonsense. You can't fucking do that. But nonetheless, like that's that was one of the things that I did is the I took the pulp genre and I took the actual cruelty of pulp heroes and I took the actual grossness of pulp heroes and I put that in the body of a teddy bear because like toxic masculinity can be fucking absurd. Like dudes who are just ridiculous or shaming people for their bodies and are just like like you're not part of the master race and stuff like, and that's just fucking stupid because we're all in these like weird meat costumes that make us do weird shit. Like just saying like,
Or meat pellets on a stick.
yeah, exactly. So it's so fucking weird when we get hung up on shit like that. And that's kind of like one of the things that led me to telling this story about a teddy bear detective because, it's just the stupidest body uh, you could put like a violent son of a bitch in. And I just wanted everything he did to be completely absurd and as silly as it looks. Watching people trying to be like you know, watching people trying to be like overly macho when they're walking around in this meat stick body.
Is that one of your more recent works? The early
That was
work?
one of my early Bizarro things, and I transitioned from there. Jeff Burke finally accepted a God of Hungry Walls, and he was like, "This is a really fucked up book. Like you can yeah, you can shift over to Deadite." And so I shifted from Eraserhead Press, which was Bizarro stuff, to Deadite, which was extreme horror. And I was really happy with what I did there. I really enjoyed transitioning like from uh somewhat lighter bizarro stuff. Like I can make anything not fun if I try hard enough. Uh to extreme horror stuff. The first one being the story of a haunting from the perspective of the haunting. And the haunted house is just a fucked up monster. It wants to acquire people, it wants to use them, it wants to puppeteer them. It is nothing but acquisitiveness and cruelty and exploitation personified in a voice that's talking into your ear for the entire book from the perspective of this house as it just arranges the pieces that
What's
it's
the name of
using
this
to hurt
book?
each other.
What's the name of this book?
It's called A God of Hungry Walls. It came out in 2016. It's got there's the Spanish edition and there's the Spanish audio edition. English audio is going to be coming fairly soon on that one, which is going to be interesting because it is not a book I've read it out loud once and someone ended up like running screaming into the bathroom. Uh so I'm really interested in seeing like what a wall-to-wall audio book of this is like because the book's fucking nuts. It's like it's not for most
Are
people.
you saying you're going to narrate it, or you're going to have someone else narrate it for
There's someone else. There will be another narrator for it.
you? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is nice. You know, I think like the narrator makes the audiobook experience just completely.
what do you feel about or how do you feel about book trailers?
Um, I like them. I had one for Jimmy Plush, but since then I've been just kind of lax on them. I'm not exactly a tech whiz. I am just bad with almost all machines. Uh, so I don't necessarily record them, but if the right project came up and I could find like a way to make a cool trailer and I had the person to do it, I would love that. And I like book trailers because honestly, I think the fanfare for books sucks. I think it's like I think it's just a way that we really undermine 2 years of hard work from a person a lot with just like a book comes out and there's fucking crickets half the time unless somebody has dropped 5 grand on a publicist or some shit. So anything you could do to increase the fanfare of a book coming out is in my opinion very positive, and I think we need to move more toward that carnivalization. Not everyone's good at it, but I think it's a necessity. I think you need to just be fuck yes when your book comes out. If you let your enthusiasm wane, then it's like it's a bad scene. And a book trailer is an engine of enthusiasm. And so I like when things can build like that because I don't think book releases get the attention or energy they deserve.
Yeah, well, it's weird too. It's not even the quality of something. It's often, they attach like if there's a name attached to it, or there's some big draw for it. Then
Oh, for sure.
so it might be absolute crap, but people are saying to go because hey, this guy happens to be on the news.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always the struggle when you're an artist. Like you're dealing with things that draw people's attention because they have a stronger marketing machine behind them. I don't think the marketing machine is bad. I just don't think it's properly democratized. I just think there's a huge difference between haves and have-nots in the attention economy.
Well, it's getting a lot different now. Like it used to be, like either you were part of one big marketing firm or you're nobody. And slowly, people are saying, like, I remember talking to Jeff Strand when he was first putting out his stuff as like ebooks. Like people were like ebooks, and like they didn't take it seriously. They thought it was absolutely crap. He's like, but now my ebooks sell better than my paperbacks, and everyone loves ebooks.
Oh, for sure.
It's just
Yeah.
the market has to get like a little bit wider, but it has expanded a lot. I mean, you have so much social media. A lot of people don't trust like the big corporations, the big management firms, and when people have like something bad to say about it, they don't hesitate to go on like Twitter or Instagram or whatever and complain about it.
For sure. Book Talk and Book Twitter are both seem horrified of books. Every time a TikToker encounters a book, It's an object of religious terror, it seems, most of the time, and it is very confusing. Like I see some good book talks, don't get me wrong, but goddamn, when it goes south and when book Twitter has a take on like, oh, characters don't consent to you watching them do things. So is reading ethical?
Yeah,
And I read that and I'm like,
people get
my
crazy
brother
with
in
all sorts of
Christ, I
stuff.
assure you,
Yeah.
you should read a lot more. You are clearly a person who needs to not stop reading. You've
Right.
got a lot of reading to do, my friend. Like, no, don't stop. Because there's some stuff in there, and I think you might benefit from it.
Well, people love to complain.
Oh
Like,
yeah, for
you know,
sure. And
it,
I'm not immune to it. I'm a salty, judgmental, and impatient individual. I try my best, but like it comes out sometimes. You gotta learn to disengage. But yeah, but in relation to what in relation to the ebooks versus print books thing, ebooks don't have just a distributors and markets that don't want people reading most books. Ebooks like are sold in a much more democratized and simple way. Like you click on it, you buy it. It's there in the Kindle store. It's just there. But the shelf of a bookstore is a harder place to get to. And I say this even as a person who is so lucky to be working with my current publisher, Clash, that has just excellent distribution. And I see my shit on bookshelves now, and that's wonderful. But I know that that's an uphill battle. And I know that, like, they're on the bookshelves because there's a rep on the other end who's just like who's going to the floor for me, you know? And not everyone has that. That is the ebooks are an equalizer in this way because you don't have just distribution methods that aren't there for everyone. You have the simple KDP store. You have the simple Kindle Unlimited and just the click and buy it. And it's a blessing, it's a curse. It is what it is, but it's like just it's allowed so many careers to thrive. It's allowed us to have Jeff Strand, it's allowed us to have Duncan Ralston, just all these like just all these big names that didn't take no for an answer when they first experienced the stigma of ebooks. It's the people who just like kept their heads down and kept working while being told that their distribution method was hacky and they didn't have and they didn't have suitable oversight.
you know, people love to tell you what you're doing wrong, even though what you're doing is way more successful than what they're doing. So,
Oh, for sure.
you know, I think the real key is like, you know, what works and how it pans out, not necessarily what the gatekeepers say is like the correct ways to do anything. I mean, you see that in tattooing, you see that in drawing, you see that in writing, you see that in everything. There are always people that they love to be like all of the old guards. Like this is the way that you got to do stuff. That's definitely not true. All right. So what are you doing right now? Are you mainly working on stuff that are short stories? Are you working longer stories? You're working for an ebook release? I remember I talked to a lady from where was she from? She was in the Middle East, and she's a horror writer.
Hmm.
And we talked a bit about you know, the difficulties in our community, but she says everything she writes in mind as it could be a TV show.
Oh, currently on I'm working on a novel. Longest thing I've written for a while, but I know that it's going to be something that that I'm gonna have to be extremely careful and extremely precise with. and it's got to all be just so. So while I'm doing that, I'm also working on a couple of novellas. I'm working on a queer splatterpunk werewolf story that just is that has a femboy werewolf and a bunch of other like queer people who've been taken to this mysterious warehouse like building by a vampire daddy dom type who keeps them there and utilizes them as both toys and as and just for prostitution. So it's a book about like people finding strength to free themselves from exploitation, but it's pretty heavy in its way. It's pretty heavy. There's a lot of gore, there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of weirdness and a lot of intensity. So I like being able to write something that's like just that, that hot and bright, that much like that has that much like energy and drive and power as it comes out is important when you're writing something that's also that's going to be a bit slower and more mannered. I like having something that's strongly id driven and strongly intense. And I think this one's gonna be I think this one's gonna be fun. About halfway on it, and yeah, and in the meantime, also just trying to work on getting some short fiction in the trunk. I don't write short stories too often, and I'd like to fix that. Like I can teach people to write short stories. I do the workshops, I give people the prompts, and they're always like, "Oh, hey, I sold something because of that." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I don't submit stories very often, but apparently I can teach you guys how to do it.
So right now, mostly what you're working on are like longer stories, but you're saying that if you want to, you can produce the short stories.
Yeah, I'd like to take a little bit of time to focus on short stories as well because I'm between workshops. I have one convention ahead, and then I'm done traveling, and then like
What's
just
a
I get a
convention?
breather where I can just write for a little bit.
Okay, what's a convention?
I'm going to KillerCon
No, I'll stay
in
there. Yeah.
Austin. Oh, cool. Yeah. This year Charcoal is nominated for a Splatterpunk award. Uh, so that's exciting. I've also never done KillerCon. I don't know what I don't know what it's like except for, things people have told me, but this year it's my third convention of the summer. I've never done a 3 con summer in my life before, and this is probably going to be this might be the last one.
What
And
else did you do?
so I started at StokerCon in June
I
20
was there.
in
Yeah.
June. Yeah, I saw you there. Then I did Nikon because
Okay.
I really like the Nikon experience. The Nikon experience definitely grew on me by the end of the first Nikon I was at, and it's just like it's very chill. It has very good access. It has a lot of people you can learn from, and a lot of just like really a lot of like names. I ended up on a panel with Billy Martin, who was previously known as Poppy Z Bright, on extreme horror, and that was so fucking intimidating. That was just like, oh God, like you're one of the people that invented this shit. Like you wrote Exquisite Corpse, and like I'm up here telling these people about this stuff. The panel went wonderful, but God, like that was a whole thing, you know? That was amazing. It was yeah, it was a lot. Uh but yeah, I enjoyed the Nikon experience. I enjoyed the StokerCon experience, and I think KillerCon will be cool.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I did the Dallas Alticon like 2 weeks ago or whatever. That was a cool experience too. I just want to give a shout out to that convention because I enjoyed that.
Hmm.
But I know there's a bunch that are like slightly more like um for the mainstream audience for horror and less for the authors.
Yeah, yeah. There seems to be a lot of like I don't really do the big fan fest type events
Right.
because that's not like that's not my crowd. At least not yet. I mean, I would love to be able to have a book out that I could go to that I could go to a fan event and have people signing at, but I just like I don't necessarily feel I'm there.
Right.
I think I got like one or two books from getting there, and it's important to just gauge yourself and pick where you're going to travel with those things before you know, decide to do like Comic Cons or fan fests or whatever the fuck.
Monster Media. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Monster Mania. Yeah, like that's not what I'm gonna do. Yeah, for a bit. So I'm deciding on just smaller like little things, but I might look into more local fan events over the course of the year. Because if you don't need to get on two planes or, you know,
Right.
or run a table, that's worth it.
I had do that for Dallas for the UltraCon, and they
Yep.
canceled my flight on the way back. So I had to pay for an extra day, pay for the meals, pay for the
Oh
hotel.
God.
Pay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a dog, and my dog
Aw.
was watching
Yeah.
it, and she's freaking out because she's like, "Hey, I can't have the dog too long." And yeah, it was a bad experience.
Yeah, yeah, no, I can imagine. There's been a lot of there's been a lot of trouble with airfare and stuff. We were pretty lucky. The worst things we got were just for some reason it kept on taking 4 hours to get from Portland to Seattle. Uh which is just fucking nuts. Like it was a 26-minute I had two 4 hour iterations of 26-minute flights for some reason. I guess because the small flights are not as well outfitted on account of the fact that people aren't shelling out a lot for them.
Right.
And they just have like, and it's just like a quick thing. So they figure like, ah, this, we don't need to put too much effort into this. But then, like, on the other hand, it should not take you 4 hours to get from Portland to Seattle. You could do that like on a horse.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've been Portland and Seattle a bunch of times. They're not that far apart.
No, they're absolutely not. Yeah, there's a bolt bus that could take me there in 90 minutes.
Yeah. Um, all right, so we won't do this all day. Tell me how to get a hold of you. Tell everyone like what you have out, how they can see your stuff. If you have an
Well,
author's page on Amazon.
yeah, I do have an author page on Amazon. I have I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Blue Sky, all as myself. I just joined Blue Sky. I don't know what it's for.
I don't know
It
what Blue Sky is.
it's one of the new social media things popping up. It's very Twitter like. It does give you like another 100 letters, which is good. A 240 character post can do I think a lot more than a 144 one. And that's a bit more in my idiom. I have a Substack as well. I'm just figuring that out. Like, there's just all this new social media stuff that's popping up, but I want to be part of it and I want to be able to, you know, communicate with people there because it's an equalizer. You know, it's what we've got when we don't have the money to shell out to Kirkus and things like that. So I can be found there. I teach writing workshops online, which are next one's going to be a flash fiction and dabble one in September.
Okay.
Followed by a horror one on horror tropes. I've seen a lot of just really good growth out of people on there. I've seen a lot of people start careers or restart careers. It's been it's a really rewarding thing, and I like it as a side hustle. And my books are
How can people find that if they want to take a look at
oh
some?
these are all conducted via Facebook group. The the writing workshops because it's just easier than having to set up a forum space.
Okay.
Uh so
What's
just you
the
can usually
Facebook
find
group?
Yep, you can usually just find me posting about it on Facebook. My WordPress page has how many slots are in each workshop and how many just how much stuff is available and when they're happening. And then so yeah, so that's there. I have the WordPress, and my latest is, as I said, Charcoal from Clash, which is up for the Splatterpunk Award. It's available on Kindle and on Amazon. You can get it at a surprising number of Barnes and Noble stores, and at Powell's in Portland, both of them.
Okay, what's Powell's?
Powell's is Portland's large independent bookstore.
Okay.
It's an entire city block.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there's three locations. The other two are a bit smaller, but I've seen the book at each of them. So it's pretty well distributed. So if you don't want to throw cash at Amazon, you can almost certainly get it through Barnes and Noble or through Clash. Even has a few signed copies available, and they're at a lot of conventions. They'll be at KillerCon. They were at Nikon. They were at StokerCon. Christoph has been doing the 3Con summer with me as well. So that's been good.
Okay, awesome, man. And is there anything else you wanted to give a shout out for? Anything you want to mention that people should look for?
Um, yeah, not really, other than once again praising the amazing work that Clash Books has done to take independent books and give them more of the infrastructure and more of the access and more of the sheen that you get from more professional books to take a small press big. So
Okay.
if you want a small press experience and a big press experience wrapped up in one, uh Clash does that for you, and it's been great. I've just been treated tremendously well. The book's paid out, the book's on shelves, they're at cons, and they're talking me up to people. And if you're looking for a place for your like weird literary horror thing, uh Clash is a good one. Clash is great, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you for doing this. I know there
Uh
was a bit of
Thanks for your time.
confusion, but finally we got it recorded, we got it down, and I'll let you know when it's out.
Thanks.
All right,
Enjoy
thanks,
yourself.
man.